Today is Sunday, October 12th, and this is another update on my progress of beating the S&P 500 along with Bill Ackman's Pershing holdings. I do make these updates every Sunday, so if you want to follow along, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. This last week, my portfolio saw a decline of 2.4%, Pershing Square had a loss of 2.75, and the S&P 500 saw a loss of 2.43, which brings us year to date. My portfolio sits at a gain of 25.58, Pershing Square has a gain of 25.23, and the S&P 500 is at a gain of 11.65. If we take a look at the events calendar for this week, due to the government shutdown, we are only going to get the inflation data points this week. On Wednesday, we get the consumer price index, and then Thursday, the producer price index, and both of those do come out before the market open. At this point, I do think that no matter what they say for the numbers, the likelihood of 2 additional rate cuts is still very high. So because of that, I don't see much movements in the markets this week caused by those numbers coming out. If we take a look at the earnings calendar, there's definitely quite a few companies reporting. There's going to be 8 in total. Tuesday, we get JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and Johnson & Johnson. Wednesday, we get Bank of America, so definitely heavy on the financials. Thursday is going to bring us Taiwan Semiconductor, American Airlines, and Snap-on. For the AI stocks, it would be nice to see Taiwan Semiconductor report good earnings. Along with all the other banks reporting, it should be a pretty eventful week. If we take a look at the SPY chart for the last week, you'll see that Monday through Thursday, the markets did relatively well. Unfortunately, on Friday, after President Trump announced the possibility of additional tariffs on China, the markets definitely took a hard dive. If we pull up the 5 and the 15-day moving average, you'll see that right now the SPY price is currently below both of them. What's going to be super important to start off the week is to see that the 5-day moving average doesn't cross below the 15. The markets are closed on Monday, so in theory, on Tuesday, even if the markets go up, because the 5 and the 15-day indicators are lagging, we could still see the 5-day briefly cross below the 15. I would say that between Tuesday and Wednesday, as long as the markets are up, it's okay for the 5-day to spend a day or two below the 15. What we really don't want to see is the markets continue to fall to start next week, especially because after the drop on Friday, we are pretty close to the long-term green trend line, and if the SPY price was to drop to that level by Wednesday, that would indicate a 1.15% decline. So for this week, I definitely think that the worst case scenario that could end up still being positive is only bouncing off of the long-term green trend line, and of course the best case scenario is we don't even touch it and we end up just moving higher, and the absolute worst case scenario is that we do end up touching the longer-term green trend line and busting down below it, because that would mean that we would be trading below it for the first time in quite a while, and it would also mean that the 5-day would have crossed below the 15, and when you have the 15-day moving average on top with the 5-day in the middle and the SPY price all the way at the bottom, that definitely indicates some bearish momentum in the markets. These are going to be all 14 of my current positions. Right now, Nvidia, Microsoft, Palantir, Meta, and Mind Medicine make up my top 5, and those make up 43.89% of my portfolio. Right now, my 2 biggest winners are still Palantir with a 61.24% gain, and then Mind Medicine with a 58.22% gain. PayPal did have a slight gain this week, so right now my loss is only 11.25. And then Sprouts Farmers Market fell again this week, and right now that sits at a loss of 30.43%. If the markets do take a dive to start the week, I do think that that's going to be a position that falls for no real reason, and I already don't think that it really deserves to be at a loss of 30.43%. So if it does take a dive to start the next week, I will be looking to increase my position in that. It is my smallest position at only 2.84% of my portfolio. I think I would be looking to add at least 25%, but definitely no more than 50%. Other than that, I do plan to keep my portfolio exactly the same, and I do have 91.06% of my portfolio invested, which leaves me with 8.94 sitting in cash. That's going to do it for today. I do make these updates every Sunday, so if you want to follow along, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next Sunday.